Joining us is Congressman Randy Forbes, a member of the House Judiciary and Armed Services Committees. Congressman, good to have you with us. Let me turn first to whatever the achievement as a result of Vice President Biden's diplomacy. Has there been any progress you're aware of?
Well, Lou, we spend a lot of time talking to our allies out there. We had several of the ambassadors online when China came out with this policy. One of the things that we hear below the radar so many times is that this administration has just not been very good at making clear what their foreign policy actually is. And this is a perfect example where they have conflicting reports that confuse oftentimes our allies. And when you come to foreign policy, the most important thing you can do is have complete clarity on what you're saying.
The Senkaku Islands have been administered by Japan, as you certainly know well, for decades. And it's disputed territory in the sense that there are rich natural resources offshore, and the Chinese obviously want them. They're critically important to our Japanese allies as well. What is the smartest way to resolve this dispute? Because it is certainly that.
Well, Lou, you're not going to completely resolve it because what you see is not just one area. China has actually been expanding their territorial claims, and so we see it in the Philippines. We see it with the Japanese. Last year alone, the Japanese had to scramble their planes over 300 times because of Chinese planes coming towards their territories. What we see in this particular situation, if we're going to try to tamp this down and deal with it, is the United States has to be very, very clear. We have to have a strong presence there because that's a very calming influence. But the second thing is we've got to be very, very clear that we're not going to just give in to their demands because they'll begin with this identification zone, but they'll consistently ratchet that up. The administration did the right thing when it first happened. We sent B-52s flying over there. That was an appropriate thing. But then they came right back around and suggested that our commercial planes should comply with this by filing these reports. I think that was the wrong act to take. The Koreans
The Japanese,
did not
by the way,
that.
just to interject, the Japanese, so everyone knows, had a fit when the Obama administration did that because they had advised their carriers to do the exact opposite. That is, not to cooperate with the Chinese authorities in filing flight plan data with them over the area.
And the South Koreans were concerned too, and they made the same recommendations to their carriers that the Japanese did.
You say it can't be resolved. The potential here for conflict is immense. The Japanese are not going to back away here whatsoever. Ambiguity about our support, this administration's support, for the Japanese interests, the South Korean interests in the region, that could be deadly dangerous.
Lou, there's no question that we see this escalation that the Chinese are doing, and it's a very, very reckless game because, as you mentioned, I don't believe the Chinese want to see a conflict right now. I certainly know we don't, the Japanese don't, the South Koreans don't. But when you take these kind of activities, it's very easy to have a misstep. When you do have a conflict, something happens, and all of a sudden you have a ripple effect and a domino effect that could be very, very disastrous in that entire region. But when I say it can't be resolved, the Chinese, when they have a strategy, they're pretty good at sticking to it and implementing it. What we need to do is manage it, and the way you manage it is by making sure we don't give credence to it and we don't give them the recognition so that they continue to escalate it. And that's why it was important. I believe that we didn't comply with it.
But, of course, we have complied with it.
We have.
Congressman, I want to turn quickly to speaking of messages and conflicting signals, your leadership is sending an inordinate number of conflicting signals on immigration, when it will be put forward, what form it will take. Speaker Boehner bringing in a new top assistant on the issue who was part of Senator McCain's leadership when it was McCain-Kennedy in 2006 and 7, the amnesty bill. Where are you all going?
Well, Lou, we don't do very well as a nation when we do these big comprehensive things. You see what happened with Obamacare. Immigration is no different. I think Chairman Goodlatte has had the right approach. He's done the right thing. I think that's ultimately where the House goes.
I have, by the way, for whatever it matters, I have endorsed Chairman Goodlatte's plan, proposal, and approach. I haven't heard the same thing from Speaker Boehner. In fact, I've heard him talking more like the Gang of Eight is his preference. And that he
Well,
is going to, he's doing the bidding of Tom Donahue over at the Chamber of Commerce. Is that, which is a reality?
Well, I think Chairman Goodlatte's going to be the reality. I sit on the Judiciary Committee, and we have taken these in a piecemeal basis where we've let everybody have their say. We've listened to both sides. I think we're going to get a good bill that's going to be an incremental bill, but that's the way we should be doing it. We need to solve some of the real problems that are out there, but we shouldn't come up with one of these big comprehensive bills that are drafted by 6 or 8 people in a back room and then thrown on everybody. And I don't think that's ultimately where the House is going to go.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it, Congress. Good to talk with you.
Thanks,
all.
Lou.
As always, Congressman Randy Forbes. Up next, he said.